Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for 11 April 2011, the podcast where half the episodes are above average. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's kick things off with News of the Bogus. Every year on April 1st, the James Randi Educational Foundation announces their Pigasus Awards, 5 awards given to the most deserving charlatans, swindlers, kooks, and psychics. This year, the Scientist Award went to NASA engineer Richard B. Hoover, who's found extraterrestrial life so many times it's apparently infected his brain. Fox News ran with the story recently, showing that there may not be intelligent life at News Corporation. The Thunder Award was given to CVS Pharmacy for supporting the quackery of homeopathic medicine. Of course, homeopathic medicine is just plain water, so whatever their problem is, it can't be blamed on dehydration. They've now made their own brand of homeopathic remedies, where they take things like a duck's liver, grind it up, go through a long multi-step process of putting absolutely none of it into water, and then dropping the plain water over sugar pills and selling the sugar pills. The Media Award went to Dr. Mehmet Oz, the first person to win a Pigasus 2 years running. From promoting faith healing, particularly the quack known as John of God, to endorsing John Edward for his skills in pretending to talk to dead people, it's not surprising. The Performer Award goes to Peter Popoff for Best Comeback. Popoff is a televangelist and faith healer who was exposed by Randi in the 1980s on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Popoff appeared to get intimate details about audience members, both personal details and details of the affliction they were there to get cured. Randi discovered that Popoff got this information from his wife via a radio transmitter, which he heard through an earpiece. Let's listen to a bit of it.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister?
She lives at 1627 10th Street.
1627 10th Street? Is that right?
That's right.
She has arthritis all over.
Burning this arthritis!
After this, Popoff went from pulling in $4 million a year to being bankrupt. Well, I mean, he was already morally bankrupt, but he was bankrupted financially too. But now he's made a comeback, bringing in tens of millions of dollars every year through his infomercials, offering supernatural debt relief. But we think the only debts being relieved here are Popoff's and his family's. And finally, the Refusal to Face Reality Award went to disgraced anti-vaccination nutcase Andrew Wakefield. Even after being exposed for direct fraud, including possibly criminal abuse of children, and the fact that he did it so that he could rake in more than $674,000 from defense attorneys who wanted to soothe the deep pockets of the pharmaceutical companies, he's now portraying himself as a martyr who was bullied by Big Pharma just because he tried to get the truth out there. Yeah, right. Information on the Pigasus Awards, their bogus recipients, and their non-bogus managers at the James Randi Educational Foundation can be found at the Foundation's website at randi.org. That's RANDI.org. Here's a bit of good news. Next week on April 12th, Americans will enjoy Tax Freedom Day, according to the Tax Foundation. This means that, assuming an average tax burden and consistent pay throughout the year, Americans will have worked until April 12th to pay taxes to the government, leaving the rest of the year's pay for themselves. This is 3 days later than it was in 2010. In 2011, Americans will pay more in taxes than they will on food, clothing, and shelter combined. The foundation calculated that Americans will have to work for 36 days to pay income tax and 22 days for payroll taxes, with the rest divided among the various other forms of taxation. However, this figure doesn't take deficit spending into account. If we consider the deficit spending as a tax, then Freedom Day doesn't occur until May 23rd, an additional 41 days. It also doesn't account for the amount of time Americans spend filling out tax forms or paying other people to do it for them. Although the Tax Foundation didn't calculate how many days out of the year this would take, they did separately post an estimate for 2011 of $391 billion. Using the same metric which they used to calculate Tax Freedom Day, which comes to roughly $35 billion a day, this would add an extra 11 days in this representation of our tax burden, pushing Freedom Day forward to June 3rd. And of course, none of this counts inflation or opportunity costs. Who knows how far back those would push the date? Whichever day you might choose to celebrate, it's certainly a joyous time for all Americans as they struggle to pay their mortgages amid rising food and gas prices. Thanks, GovCo! It's the very thing some people say never happens. John Thompson was wrongfully convicted of murder and spent 18 years in jail before his innocence was proven. It turns out that the Louisiana district attorney for his case, Harry Connick Sr., deliberately withheld the evidence that he was innocent. This included blood samples from the crime scene belonging to someone else and the fact that the informant who testified against him had been paid to do it. And if you're one of those people who say it's better than letting a murderer go free, let me make the point none of you seem to want to consider. Every innocent person convicted results in a murderer going free. Thompson being convicted means that the police didn't keep looking around for the real killer, even though they've got his blood samples to go by. After he was cleared, Thompson sued the DA's office and was awarded $14 million, a judgment that withstood not one but two appeals. But when the U.S. Supreme Court got a hold of it, it was overturned in a 5-4 ruling, despite the fact that the DA's office admitted they had broken the law. The argument they gave was that the DA's office couldn't be held responsible for a single violation. There had to be a pattern. I guess the fact that it was multiple pieces of evidence, or the fact that there was no less than 5 DAs involved in depriving Thompson of his rights, doesn't constitute a pattern. But even at that, if anyone in the private sector makes a single violation, he's sued, and he has to pay the judgment. What's so special about government workers that they get special treatment? What, they get to violate our rights if they only do it one at a time? You or I do it, we pay the price. We're held accountable. Politicians and bureaucrats aren't. The Supreme Court had the chance to send a good, clear message. No one is above the law, and even government prosecutors can be held accountable for the harm they cause. As it is, the message they sent was, you can go ahead and commit all the violations you want. You're not accountable. Sadly, that message has been in the ears of politicians and bureaucrats for far too long. Whatever we must do to protect our precious liberties, we certainly can't rely on the Supreme Court to back us up. Now it's time to see the objectionable obtuseness that comes from this week's biggest Bogon emitter. Sharyl Attkisson is a reporter for CBS News who lends undue credence to the false and dangerous notion that vaccines cause autism and other problems. The science just isn't with her, but like all woos, she doesn't let that stop her. In an article called Vaccines and Autism, a New Scientific Review, she reviews what she claims is, quote, what nobody else apparently has bothered to do. She, Helen Radishak, the author of the paper, reviewed the body of published science since autism was first described in 1943. If she honestly thinks this is the only time anyone has done this, then she's way too incompetent to be a reporter, since any Google Scholar search will come up with numerous such reviews. Heck, anyone with access to PubMed can do it in a couple of minutes. Of course, they all conclude there's no link, so Attkisson conveniently ignores them. She quotes the article directly, saying, documented cases of autism include genetic mutations and/or deletions, viral infections, and encephalitis following vaccination. Therefore, autism is the result of genetic defects and/or inflammation of the brain. So even by her own admission, the entire argument is post hoc ergo propter hoc. Once again, all they have is the symptoms of autism and the subsequent diagnosis showing up around the same time that children get most of their vaccines. But that doesn't mean the vaccines caused the autism, and it doesn't even mean the child became autistic at that time. All the data point to a prenatal cause of autism. The symptoms just don't usually manifest until around 3 years of age. She quotes Radishak, saying, what I have published is highly concentrated on hypersensitivity, the body's immune system being thrown out of balance. This is just nonsensical pseudoscientific garbage. There is no concept of balance in immunology. Balance, like energy, is a typical alt-med woo buzzword designed to sell you crystals. But her stupidity gets even greater. You see, previously they claimed that the mercury in thimerosal, a preservative used in some vaccines, was the culprit. In a desperate attempt to explain why autism cases didn't go down when thimerosal was removed from childhood vaccines, she makes this incredibly bogus argument. Because it's human DNA and recipients are humans, there's homologous recombination tinnicker. That DNA is incorporated into the host DNA. Now its changed, altered self and body kills it. Where is this most expressed? The neurons of the brain. Now you have body killing the brain cells, and it's an ongoing inflammation. It doesn't stop, it continues through the life of that individual. What? She thinks that simply gaining cells that contain human DNA is enough for the host to incorporate new genes into its genome? Then why is it taking so long for scientists to develop gene therapy? And why do retroviruses have to go through so much to insert their genes into the genome? They have to make an enzyme called retroviral integrase to do so. And why make a big deal over it being human DNA as opposed to, say, chicken DNA? There's no chemical difference between the two, only the sequence itself is what makes human DNA human DNA. So why should it incorporate itself any more readily? There just is no science at all to support this. Homologous recombination tinnicker is nothing more than pseudoscientific babble, designed to make your brain click into power save mode so that you'll go, duh, it must be like real science and stuff. But ask yourself this, if there's anything to this, then shouldn't it be happening all over the place with people who get blood transfusions? And why is it not an issue with people who get organ transplants? Of course, like all woos, neither Attkisson nor Radishak let a little thing like a complete lack of evidence stand in their way. Attkisson writes, Radishak agrees that nobody has proven DNA causes autism, but argues nobody has shown the opposite and scientifically the case is still open. This is a bogus shifting of burden. Nobody has proven that autism is caused by watching Dragon Ball Z, but nobody has shown the opposite, and so scientifically, according to Radishak, the case that watching Dragon Ball Z causes autism is still open. Give me a break! What's also bogus is that Attkisson claims it's a new review, except that the completely awful website Age of Autism scooped her on it over 2 months beforehand. The worst part of all of this is that, thanks to the horrendous bogosity that is anti-vaccination nuttery, preventable diseases are on the rise. In Minnesota, an outbreak of measles has been linked to a single Somali child who got measles when he went to Kenya. 7 of the 14 children are Somali, and of those, all were unvaccinated. But in only one case was it because the child was too young to get the shot. The Somali parents told the health department that they didn't vaccinate their children for fear that, yes, the vaccines would give them autism. In Floyd County, Virginia, 30 people have been diagnosed with pertussis, popularly known as whooping cough. The outbreak prompted a week-long school suspension, and parents in the county are advised to keep their children at home and to receive their booster shots. Most of the children who contracted the disease were unvaccinated, and the infected adults had not gotten their booster shots. Vaccines save lives. Anti-vaccination forces kill. And that's why, whether it's through a desperate attempt to increase her popularity or just insanely incompetent journalism, Sharyl Attkisson is well qualified to be this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And now it's time to see whose awesome gullibility, dreadful imbecility, lack of credibility, and pure unbelievability, not to mention total juvenility and reprehensibility, meets the attainability for this week's Idiot Extraordinare. There are idiots, there are drooling idiots, there are gibbering idiots, and then there are the moon hoaxers. The people who claim that all of the evidence that we went to the moon is really an elaborate conspiracy and everything we saw was just special effects. And the lamest of the lame is Jarrah White. In episode 9 of Bogosity, his stupidity was revealed when it was shown that he couldn't even do simple math. He claimed that an increase of 150% was double.
Okay, here we are. We've got the Sony Vegas opened up, and we've also got the Apollo Archive MPEG clip. You got this. This is a jump salute. Now the conspiracy theory is that it's been slowed down by 50%. So, if this clip was slowed down by 50%, what we would want to do here, go here, insert velocity. Now we've got our velocity up here. Now what we want to do now is increase its velocity by 50%. In this case, it's now up to... Yep, here we go. Now that we've got our footage doubled in speed, let's watch it again.
When he was called on it, it took him weeks to acknowledge this, and when he did, he still insisted the 150% was correct, and that the solution was to just consider the original to be 67%, not 100%, and wouldn't listen to all the people who tried to explain that this was a circular argument. And then he tried to blame Sony Vegas for the problem, not him. Pathetic. But now he's gone beyond stupid to just bullying. At current count, he has committed false flagging and false DMCA complaints against 56 different videos criticizing his idiocy, almost half of them made by YouTube user Astrobrant2. To make things even more incredibly despicable, listen to what he claimed in a recent video.
In metaphoric terms, I am that kid, and Astrobrant2 is that antagonizing bully who finally got what he had coming to him.
How completely lacking in morals do you have to be to use bullying, forceful and unjustified tactics to get videos removed so no one can see them, and then accuse one of the people you did this to of being a bully, when all that person did was expose you for the incredible dolt that you are?
I don't think I even need to list any examples, as he is pretty much guilty of all the usual offences. Stealing and doctoring my footage.
It's called parody, dumbass.
Producing videos to harass me.
Attacking you for your insanely stupid beliefs is not harassment. It's what you get for proffering one of the stupidest conspiracy theories ever devised.
Claiming that I can't do basic math?
Well, we knew that, Mr. 150% is double. His list of non-crimes goes on and on and on. Of course, what he didn't accuse Astrobrant of doing was of forceful acts against the free speech of others, like falsely flagging videos or filing fraudulent DMCA claims, the way Jarrah does without hesitation.
I never thought I'd say this, but I have decided to report Astrobrant2's videos if he goes ahead and releases such a video promoting these libelous and false accusations about me.
Sorry, but neither flagging nor DMCA claims have anything to do with libel. Neither are legally appropriate responses to someone committing libel. The proper legal reaction in such a case is to file a lawsuit. And besides, libel is printed. When it's spoken, it's slander. Jarrah has pulled this crap before. As Astrobrant pointed out, Jarrah made false DMCA claims, which is perjury by the way, against another YouTube user, Khalil Jordan Kent, resulting in Khalil's account being closed. Jarrah tries to do damage control by saying that it's a lie that he filed false DMCA claims and that what he really did was file false DMCA claims.
Here's how it actually went. After KJK released his video in which he stole the funeral video and calls the ashes I scattered dirt, among other things, I filed DMCA takedowns against KJK. I specified quite clearly that he had stolen my copyrighted material purely for the purposes of defamation, ridicule, and harassment.
No, he didn't. What he did was properly use your video under the concept of fair use, which allows someone to play direct quotes from your video for the purposes of crafting a response. Not only that, but paragraph 6C of the YouTube Terms of Service specifically states, and I quote, "You also hereby grant each user of the YouTube website a non-exclusive license to access your user submissions through the website and to use, reproduce, distribute, display, and perform such user submissions as permitted through the functionality of the website and under these terms of service." So Jarrah, as long as Khalil didn't violate the terms of service, he does get to use clips from your videos, as you contractually agreed to when you signed up for YouTube and uploaded the videos. Jarrah even admitted doing this to other users as well. And the sad part is, he doesn't seem to think he did anything wrong. In fact, he sees himself as standing up to a bully and doesn't see the hideous bully staring right back at him from the mirror. With all this incredible stupidity, not to mention narcissism, there just isn't any way he could not be this week's Idiot Extraordinare! Well, that wraps up this edition of the Bogosity podcast. Please visit the forums at Bogosity.tv, where you can read the show notes and participate in discussions about these subjects and anything else you like. And if you'd like to participate in the Bogosity podcast, you can send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@Bogosity.tv. If you put it in an MP3 file, it just might get played in the podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Harry Browne. If you give a good politician the power to do good things, you automatically give a bad politician the power to do bad things. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license.
Bogosity.